So here today, I'm your host Sully, and I'm here with filmmaker, YouTuber, and author Mike Messier. He's visiting in the DFW area, and we just so happened to decide, hey, you're nearby. How about I chime in?
Yeah, Cam, it's great to be here with you, buddy. We're both in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I'm in Arlington. I was here for the San Angelo Revolution Film Festival a few days ago. My documentary, Disregard the Vampire, a Mike Messier documentary, played. Receptive audience, nice people there in San Angelo. And
Right.
then
Your
from there,
books include, once again, a distance from Avalon, where the dying and the dead reunite, as well as your other book, Fight or Play Basketball. Every shot counts.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, the Disregard the Vampire documentary kind of, in a roundabout way, led to the writing of my novel, Distance from Avalon, When the Dying and the Dead Reunite, which would be qualified as magical realism / gothic horror. And my other book, Fight or Play Basketball, Every Shot Counts, is very different. It's a coming of age sports story, single mom raising her son. He's a big basketball star, and through a turn of events, the mother and the son get very close to a couple of boxing personalities.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, the two stories are very different, but the process for both was that I had originally written both stories as feature film screenplays originally, and then during our worldwide lockdown type of situation, I had the time to write them as novels. So that's what I did.
Nice. And I was really digging your documentary because it kind of gave me shades of, I don't know if you've ever seen American Movie from '99.
Funny thing is, I've heard of it and I've never seen it, but I'm aware of the storyline of it.
Yeah, it was just one of those. I don't even know where you could get a copy. I think it went so out of print. It was so independent, but I just really dug how it was just talking about just a lot of the same stuff. Is like it's practically the exact same plot. A movie that was incomplete, and then showing you the making of it and screening of it, and uh, finding other people who are patient enough to make such a big endeavor and max out their credit cards. And that was '99 compared to today, but you were going for a lot of the same stuff. It's like, hey, I want to show people I have a cool thing here, have a cool product. You can learn a lot from this. You can use something cool with this, and it's tough to explain to everybody, unless they've actually been through the ringer on.
Right. Yeah.
And I've had a lot of the same BS that you've had, where it's just like, man, is there anybody who I can trust on? Now I can't think of anyone who doesn't now have to carefully word in any contract, will be paid upon completion, will be doing this or that. And unfortunately, so many people just don't follow up. You get flakes, you get all other stuff. And it's like, you got to just remind people, hey, if you're going to play ball, you better be doing so.
You got it right, Cam. And your response upon initially watching the doc, which I think you said you wrote something to the effect of you've been through hell and back and been through the ringer. And then I kind of knew that you got it. And just for the audience listening, this documentary is pretty easy to find. It's right there on YouTube on my channel. Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel. Disregard the Vampire Mike Messier documentary. And if people want to watch what we're talking about, it's less than 40 minutes and it's pretty enjoyable. It's won 13 awards of one kind or another. And especially for wannabe filmmakers out there, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean, people that want to make films is what I'm saying. Aspiring is probably the better word. Aspiring filmmakers are people maybe like ourselves that are kind of one foot in the world of professionalism and trying to get both feet in there. I think people will relate to this story quite a bit.
Yeah, you were pretty open, and you kind of just got straight to the point. And it was wild how you were able to have all these local TV promos that you had appeared in and interviews. It's just definitely a big commitment to telling your story.
Yeah, well, when people watch the doc, they'll capture this. There's a moment late in the documentary where you see myself, Mike Messier, interviewing myself on a show called Messier Mantra, which is an actual show. But that show started, I want to say, in January of 2015. 10 months after the Disregard the Vampire filming, and it was originally supposed to be kind of a making of the reboot of A Distance from Avalon at that point. But there was once again weather issues that kept some of the key players away from the studio, and so at the last minute I had to punt and kind of change the whole name of the show and the whole point of the show, and that became Messier Mantra, which became my interview talk show, which I did about 200 episodes on, and 199 of those episodes were not me interviewing myself. I had a lot of great guests on. So my point in saying that is that although Disregard the Vampire narrative feature film has yet to be made, or will never be made really, because it's been changed at this point, it really did launch a lot of other ships, including the Messier Mantra interview show, which once again, the archived episodes are on Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel. And so if you try to, I don't even want to say stay positive, because a lot of times I'm not, to be honest with you, Cam. A lot of times I'm kind of negative or cynical. But if you keep doing stuff,
It's
more stuff
easy
will
to do.
happen. You're right. It's easy to get cynical, and it's easy to get annoyed or negative or sarcastic or not thinking things are going to turn out. But I guess what I've discovered the hard way is if you keep doing stuff, even if 1 out of 10 things really hit the way you want it to, then that's a pretty good batting average for this crazy industry.
It really is. And it's all, don't, I know you know this, everyone knows this, but all I can say to others is just take a break from it. If you're just getting so fed up with just so many just easily avoidable mistakes and other people wasting your time, just wait out and keep looking for some other people who are reliable.
That's a good point, Cam. That's a good point.
It's just annoying, but but it's kind of cool that you're traveling around the country and kind of networking with other people. That always has some kind of reward. I've found so many people who are in everywhere from North Carolina to Atlanta, Oklahoma, Nebraska, and even New Orleans and Nevada. And it was just like, yeah, I'm down. It's just got to find time, but I'd be down to work with you guys versus whoever's in my state. It just sucks because you don't want to, again, sound too cynical or get to where you feel like you're leaving other creative potentials out of the loop. But yeah, if you've been in your oyster and it's really dried up like a well, then you should just keep finding some other guys and other circles and pick each other's brains. But so what caused the influence to just kind of start putting your creative thoughts and translating them into a novel?
Well, it was really
case, 2 novels.
Oh, sorry. It was really the lockdown. Like the fact that I had just moved to Jacksonville, Florida from Wickford, Rhode Island, and really didn't know a lot of people. And I got to Jacksonville in September of 2019. It took me a couple of weeks just to kind of get acclimated to a place to live. And then I actually moved like 6 weeks. I mean, I moved 5 minutes away, but I moved, pretty quickly after I got to Jacksonville. And I was just kind of starting to make some friendships, personal friendships, professional friendships, just starting the tip of that. And that's a process, and as we get older, it's harder to make new friends in the new sandbox. You know what I mean? So I was trying to do that, and then we get hit with this, at least for me, an unexpected version of reality, which is, hey, we've got this worldwide health scare, and everybody's supposed to stay home, and everyone's supposed to wear a mask, and don't go to the bar, and don't go to the movie theater because it's not open, and blah blah blah. And a lot of my hopeful interactions with other human beings, like-minded individuals, as they say in the film world, kind of hit a screeching halt. And so I kind
Oh
of
yeah.
just, yeah. So I mean, the whole the whole idea of moving to Florida and meeting new film collaborators was kind of out the window. Although I knew that there were people there, but everybody was kind of very hesitant to meet people in person for a while, unless absolutely necessary, which is totally understandable. I'm not that egotistical to think that my film career pursuits take precedent over people's health or even my own. But the point
It's
is,
tough to explain to others though.
right. The point is, I just kind of went, I don't want to say introverted, but maybe I just kind of did what I do, which is, at the end of the day, Cam, probably the things I like the most are acting and writing. So I went back to writing. And here's the thing with me, Cam, I've probably written, I want to say like 12 or 15 feature film screenplays over the last 12 years. And it's almost, to use an extreme comparison, and I know that this is extreme, but like being a parent of 12 kids and none of them have gotten into college. You know what I mean? So there's a certain level of
Mm.
disappointment or disenchantment. I mean, I've had a few successes as a contributing writer to a film titled The Manor, which is a horror film that Lionsgate distributed, and as a script consultant to a Lennox Lewis The Untold Story boxing documentary. I've had more success as a contributor to other people's situations than I have to my own. The only film that I've written that I feel, as a feature film, I should say, because I've done plenty of shorts that I'm very proud of. But the feature film I wrote and directed, Blood Sugar Sedace, that came out pretty much the way I wanted it to, but that was self-financed. And that was on a very, very, very small budget, like a minuscule budget. And so the frustration for me, Cam, is, I have all these scripts: American Luchador, God is My Best Friend, Wrestling with Sanity, Chris and the Coffee Girl. Some of them were talked about in the doc. Bad Girls with Good Tattoos is talked about. And so I decided to take that anger or that disappointment or that frustration and say, hey, look, if these, because nobody likes to read screenplays. Even film industry professionals hate reading screenplays because it takes
They have to
forever.
use their mind. Yeah.
Right. It takes a couple of hours to read a screenplay. And the fact is that so many screenplays don't get made that people are kind of reluctant to even spend an hour or two reading a screenplay on the chance that it might get made. You know what I mean? So I said, well, people, at least some people, still like to read books, I think. So if I change the format of these stories to novels, maybe I'll tap into the novel readers of the world, and maybe enough people will read these books, or at least one or two of them, and say, hey, these books are so good that we should make them into movies. And then I can happily raise my hand and say, well, lucky you, I've already written the screenplay version several years earlier. So that's kind of the whole impetus for translating my stories into novels.
Very nice. And so brainstorming is a big key factor for any of this. How do you pace yourself? How do you spread it out over time to where it's like, okay, I'm gonna do a bit writing here, gonna go clear my mind here, gonna go take a walk, gonna go brainstorm here. What's your formula?
Well, that's a great way of putting it. What's your formula? And I would say the key word on what you just asked is the your, because every writer is different. I mean, there's a great book. I think it's called like 101 Screenwriting Habits of Highly Successful Screenwriters.
I have not read this. This sounds great.
Yeah, I think the guy's name is Carl Iglesias, is and he basically conducted interviews with like some really great screenwriters. And I mean, it's a great book. And I remember probably my favorite lesson, or the one that I can remember the best anyway, is if you sit your butt in your chair and write for 4 hours every day, before you know it, you'll be a writer, and a well-disciplined writer. And you can go to the movies, or you can go walk on the beach, or you can have your day job, or your kids, or your spouse, or your health club membership. You can do all that stuff, but as long as you're writing for 4 hours a day, you're a writer. Well, I love that advice, but I never seem to follow it. I sometimes I'll have spurts where I'm writing 10 or 12 hours a day, to be honest with you, for a couple of days in a row. And then I'll have spurts where I don't write for 6 or 8 weeks. I'm kind of in the middle of that right now, Cam, because I've been traveling so much the last couple of weeks. I haven't forced myself to write. You know what I mean? But at other times when I kind of block out, like, okay, this week is pretty light for me, that's when I'll kind of work on my books and or screenplays or whatever else. I mean, so I'm more of a spurty. I would say I'm more of a writer that works in spurts. But I think that if I were to give advice to someone, I would probably just copy and paste that advice from the Carl Iglesias screenwriter's book, which is write 4 hours a day, and pretty soon you'll be a writer.
Very nice, very nice. It does get a little overwhelming when it just seems like, you're making all this commitment and you're still going to have to make an inevitable, just giant uh bunch of rehashes, just like a reshoot. You kind of want to get it done mostly right the first time. Yeah.
Oh yeah, but the funny thing is, Cam, I've kind of embraced the rewriting. I mean, there's stuff that me and my friend Tommy Danucci, we co-host a podcast called And Action, and it's a filmmaking podcast. And one
Oh,
thing,
sweet.
yeah, it's on. I think we're on week number 25. It's a weekly show. That's actually on Tom Danucci's YouTube channel. Denucci is his last name. First name is Tom. So, but one of the things we both agree on is like, and this is kind of a slightly nasty term, but people call it the vomit draft, which is basically
I love it.
that's the first draft of a screenplay. And the idea is get it all out of your system. Don't judge it. Don't restrict it. Don't censor yourself. Warts and all, mistakes and all, typos and all. Get that first draft on paper as soon as possible, as quickly as possible. I always recommend using Final Draft screenwriting program. I mean, we could talk about that for an hour, but we won't. But I mean, I always say that Final Draft is the way to go for screenwriters. But whatever you do, get that first draft out of your system, and then depending on the person, you might take 24 hours away from it. You might take a week away from it, but get back to that script once you've got your
Don't abandon it.
Don't abandon it. I'm just saying, yeah, write it first. Write that vomit draft, that first vomit draft. Give it a week or so, or whatever you feel comfortable with, and then get back to it and take your Sharpies. I'm a big proponent of red Sharpies or green G7 ink pens or whatever, and go back into that thing and start circling all the mistakes and all the things that you see wrong. And if you happen to be one of those people that has somebody you can trust to read over the script and give you some advice or some thoughts, you can do that. You don't have to. There's also, myself, probably yourself. There are people that people can hire as screenwriting consultants in order to get some help with that. So it's all quite doable.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's tough to describe to some. I notice kind of like how I was in a hysterical chat just the other day with someone. I forgot where they lived. I think one of them lived in Austin, the other lived in like just a bunch of other just like different areas, just going back and forth between Vegas gigs and a bunch of other stuff. And he's like, just don't bother doing a fan film. And it was like interesting. I was like, I've seen what they're describing. Like, I've had kind of a lot of the same issues you guys have had where people just don't get it. And despite being patient with them and describing it to them, and can't make any money off it because it's based on a pre-existing thing, but it's a good way to show people, hey, I value these movies and books and comics I grew up with. It's do you feel communication is just sorely lacking in a lot of just these entertainment areas, especially when you try and do corporate stuff like, hey, here's a wedding venue commercial, here's a car commercial, and just a lot of people, they want that they're willing to pay tons of money, but they just don't know how to explain what their vision is, and they won't do storyboards or shot lists, which makes it even harder.
Well, if you're talking about the folks, so like say there's a car dealer and he's hiring a local film crew or a local video production team to make a commercial for him or for her, whoever owns this hypothetical car business, they've seen commercials their whole life. They've seen car commercials they've liked, and they have this vision of what would it be like for us to have our own car dealership commercial, but they're not in the filmmaking business or the video production industry. So why, if you think about it like that, that's not their business. So they're not going to know the lingo of like a medium close up or a two shot or whatever cameras you're using. Like the car dealership people are really going to be pretty ignorant, and not in an insulting way. They're just not going to know. So if you're the video production team or if you're the filmmaking team going in there to work with, people that have an interest but don't really know what they're doing, it's kind of your job to help them figure it out. That's why you're getting paid the money.
Fair enough.
I've done a lot of stuff, Cam, as I've been a hired gun as a screenwriter, and the way I don't really ghost write, but I'll co-write, which basically means I'm doing all the writing and somebody else
rewriting, or someone else's voice is being translated.
Somebody else has the idea is usually how it works, and then I actually do the writing. So that's just how it's kind of worked for me. Like somebody has an idea to write a script, and a friend of mine said this to me, like he had this idea for a film script. It was actually quite good. And I said to him, hey, look, you could spend the next 10 years taking screenwriting classes and reading a stack of screenwriting books that I can even tell you which ones to buy. Or for a couple of $1,000, you could hire me to write the script for you and give me a co-writer credit, and you take a co-writing credit, and you've saved yourself 10 years of agony trying to be a screenwriter. Because you know what I mean? Like, I can't fix cars, Cam, but I mean, I'm smart enough to drive my car to the Goodyear and get my car checked out in a couple of months. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, but I think what happens is a lot of people think they're just going to wake up and be a screenwriter, or they have an idea and they're going to write a script and then they're going to go out and make their movie. Well, you might be that 1 in a million person, but the reality is you may not. And if you're smart enough to be humble enough to ask for help, and even better, pay for help, then you'll probably be more effective from the outside coming in. That's just my opinion.
Okay, very nice. Well, and so it's very easy to be attached to a bunch of projects and then have to kind of reorganize and say, okay, it's been a few months. This one's kind of in development hell. This one's making some progress. This one's pretty dedicated and interested in, but it's not going where I would like it to go. So how do you organize your whole process to where you're just like, okay, this person can come back to me when they're actually ready to, take this off, jettison and expedite the process, and this one I'm so committed to. I'm just so invested in emotionally, money wise, and just want to have this creatively take off. So how do you translate it all in your mind and organize it?
Well, that's a great question. And I probably just now I can probably articulate some good responses to that question, Cam. And I think the word that came to my mind as you were talking was priorities. And I mean, a big priority, if you want to break it down, is which of these projects has my name on it? In my case, that would be Mike Messier. In your case, it would be Cam, and whoever's listening, it would be their own name. But what project puts you and your talents front and center? Or in my case, my talents front and center. A friend of mine, David Gear, he put this on Facebook once, and but his expression that he put on Facebook, his little quote was, go out and accomplish your own dreams or help somebody else accomplish theirs. And to me, what that means is if you don't put yourself as the priority creator, you're going to be a journeyman middle manager helping other people do their stuff. And, hey, look, we need middle managers too, right? We need assistant managers.
Right.
We need first ADs. I always say that the first AD on a film set is the bad cop of the production because they have the toughest job,
Yes.
But the point is, if you're the type of person like myself and probably yourself who wants to be the lead writer, the director, the producer, your name on the marquee, you're the Alfred Hitchcock of this thing, or the Spike Lee, or the whoever else. You've got to fight for your own projects, and a lot of time that's difficult, Cam, especially these days when there seems to be a shift in society where being an alpha individual or a leader is kind of looked down upon. It's like kind of being quiet and understated and minimalist is being stressed now.
Hmm.
And then you have people that go totally adverse to that, like the 45th President Trump, who was such a fighter or such an arrogant guy on Twitter and everything else, but somehow he got elected. So our society is really got a duality to it. We want certain people, Kim Kardashian and Trump and whoever else can be front and center with all their opinions and all their agendas and all their promotions. But the rest of us are supposed to be good little boys and good little girls who sit there with our thumbs in our mouths, asking for permission for everything. So people need to kind of decide: are you the sheep or the shepherd?
That's a good point. It does seem like, it kind of all goes back to the first rule of thumb, making an impression versus, you know, it, when you get the job, you did a good job at the interview, but do you actually want the job now that you found out the hard way what it actually entails, which is not at all what was on paper? It's you're having to negotiate, you're having to make sure you can work with the person regardless of whether you like them or not. And it's even worse. And when it comes down to is like, I mean, I'm working for a big person, but I don't like what they represent, or this movie isn't at all, what, what's in the final cut wasn't at all what was on paper. It's a totally different movie that I really want to be associated with. It's so hard. So how have you've been able to avoid office politics? By the way, we got 9 minutes left on this due to the
Yeah, that's fine.
how it's set up. But all right. So how do you just filter? How do you just say, okay, there's all these other guys who are outspoken and they're just getting on my nerves, but I'm not gonna let it bug me because it's all I can do is just not work with them.
Well, I mean, good question once again. I can say this, into an extreme case, Cam. I moved, 3 years ago. I was in New England. I knew a lot of people in New England. There's a film scene there. There's tax credits there. Blah blah blah. But at some point, the weather was just killing me. The 5 months of winter in New England, which is really feels like 6 months from Halloween to Cinco de Mayo, basically, it's winter up there. And although I had a lot of connections and a lot of friends up there, I just said, man, I got to get out of here for my own health. And, and when I did that transition, Cam, and it took me a couple of years to do that, I did break some ties with people in the years before I left because there was a particular person. I'm obviously not going to name him by name, but a guy that I worked with on a few projects, and it was kind of his responsibility to get the paperwork done so that we could actually get the final edit for these projects, and that never seemed to happen. And it wasn't rocket science. It's like we just need some basic permission forms filled out. And
It is always the worst. I have been for that same ring. It is 1,000% stressful because it's like, you don't do this, everything's compromised, dude. We need it. There's no other way
exactly.
around it.
Yeah. So I mean, after, and I think it got to the point there was like 8, let's call them episodes of this project that were done, that were filmed anyway, but couldn't be fully edited and distributed because we didn't have this paperwork. And like I said, it's not rocket science. And so the guy still wanted to make episode number 9. And I finally said, no, we're done. Because people were coming to me looking for the answers. Why isn't this project being released? You know, people that gave us our time, and it became an embarrassment to me. And I was doing my part, but the point is, if someone's, the basic word I would use is incompetent. If someone's incompetent, you have to let them go. And
Yep.
you don't have to wish ill upon them. I mean, that's certainly not the case.
Not saying that.
Right. It's just your time is valuable, you know. And I guess the other thing, Cam, try to take on your question in different ways is like, you know, for me, so many. I mean, I was just talking to somebody the other day about my books, trying to promote my books. And the lady I was talking to kind of turns it around, and suddenly she's got an idea for a screenplay that she thinks Disney should make, and you know what I mean. And I'm like, is she trying to lead me down a path where I'm writing her screenplay for her? And I didn't stop her from talking, but I'm kind of thinking, you've just heard me say that I wrote these novels because I'm not getting my screenplays made. What makes you think I have the time or interest or the passion to write somebody else's story into a screenplay that may or may not ever get made? So, you know, sometimes people have selective hearing or they don't take the hint. And the only thing you can do is really just double down on your own stance. And I don't call it being self-centered. I call it being self-preservation mode. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And pay it forward and say, hey, want to help? Join. You don't, I'll help you, especially if the check clears. But it seems like it's just, you got to just keep reminding everyone, hey, you gave your words, so let's not mix this up. Let's do something. But it can be frustrating. But you've answered some sincere questions on kind of just, not catering to anything that just gets anyone down. Just saying, hey, okay, let's move on, or let's not end it here.
Yeah, and there's always different times in people's lives and careers too, Cam. I mean, when I was 15 or 20 years younger, I would be more up or more have more time or more interest in spending hours and hours upon somebody else's project for no pay or little pay, oftentimes for no pay. I mean, I think about all the theater shows for no money, you know. But as you get older and you kind of like start to see that, hey, maybe I have just as much life ahead of me as I do behind me or less, then you start valuing your own time and your own efforts more, you know. And it's not to sound morbid, but it's just kind of a thing where if you don't value your own time, nobody else will. And like my friend said in his, Facebook post, fight for your own dreams or help someone else fight for theirs, and so I put a lot of my stuff on Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel. That's the actual name of the channel. It starts with the word subscribe. And then I have MikeMessier.com. And then my books, A Distance from Avalon, When the Dying and the Dead Reunite, that's on Amazon. And Fight or Play Basketball, Every Shot Counts is on Amazon. I actually have a film advice book, How to Direct low budget student and short films. That's on Amazon as well. And if people like what I've been saying
Very
here,
nice.
thank you. If people relate to what we've been talking about here, my book would be a great follow-up. If they have Kindle Unlimited, they can read it basically for free. So yeah.
So, like, you're set for life right now.
Well, Cam, I mean, I appreciate this conversation, Cam. I mean, I can say that I've enjoyed the state of Texas the last week or so, and I'll be here for another week or so. And I mean, Texas is pretty cool. So I mean, based on the San Angelo Revolution Film Festival, I had a good time. I'm in Arlington, Texas now with my friend Jamie Reborn. He's another filmmaker, and just
Perfect.
yeah, happy to be here, man. And I'm curious to see what you're doing, Cam, with your work as well.
I'll get you some connections. I'll get you on some cool project for people I trust.
Appreciate it, buddy. Thanks.
Let's help each other out.
Well, I'm always happy if people want to reach out to me. They can go to the contact on MikeMessier.com. For what it's worth, once again, on my YouTube channel, I have how to produce an award-winning low-budget short film video that's like an hour and 15 minutes. That's somewhere on my YouTube channel. So I mean, and I think the doc, I mean, if we go back to where we started with this conversation, Cam, Disregard the Vampire, of Mike Messier documentary, I think people will learn something from it. And I think they'll get a laugh out of it, but they'll also get some life lessons and career lessons. And unlike a lot of documentaries, this one has a bit of a sense of humor. So I think it helps the watchability, if that's a word.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there you go.
Well, I look forward to it. And any other topic you even want to talk about, your favorite film or TV franchise, or even some comics and books or other cool podcasts you want to talk about, we can schedule a podcast chat about that for sure.
I love to talk about film with you. I just saw 2 movies yesterday: The Good House with Sigourney Weaver and Kevin Kline. Oddly enough, a guy that I used to know in Rhode Island, Tony Estrella, had a supporting role in that.
Oh,
and
sweet.
The movie Pan's Labyrinth, if you ever saw that was on the big screen last night too, here in Arlington. So it's a good time to go to the movies. And I do Mike's Instant Movie Reviews on my subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel as well. But
and you're getting the actual experience.
Yeah, man. Be happy to talk to you more about it. I think we're running out of time, so I'll just say thanks, and I'll let you wrap things up.
Absolutely. Yeah, just let me know where you want to email this chat, and I'll try to get it posted ASAP.
I'm going to email it to you as soon as I can, buddy. Thank you so much, Cam. This has been a lot of fun talking to you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
We'll return after these messages.
Do you ever find yourself thinking about who would win in a fight between Goku and Superman? Hi, I'm James Gavsey, and on the Who Would Win show, me and my co-host Ray ignore anything important happening in the outside world and debate fictional battles between characters from comics, movies, and video games.
We got a new show every week, and almost always am I the winner.
Yeah, not true, Ray.
In the past, we've discussed such matches as Captain America versus Darth Vader, Solid Snake versus the Iron Giant, classic matchups like RoboCop versus Terminator, and even the Muppets versus Sesame Street.
That one was crazy. So if you're a fan of geek culture and love a spirited debate, check out the Who Would Win show wherever you get your podcasts, or check us out at whowouldwinshow.com.
We let things pile up in the DVR, we add them to our queues, we wait for the DVDs and Blu-rays. We time shift. The Time Shifters Podcast. Sci-fi, horror, fantasy, superheroes, comedy, action, film, television, maybe some not-so-current events. Find us on iTunes or at timeshifterspodcast.com.
Cool thing about Blind Knowledge is we are in multiple countries. We are worldwide all across the globe. We are in the US, we are in the UK, we are in Canada, Germany, India, Japan. We're in Australia, y'all. BlindKnowledge.com. Now back to the feature presentation.
Dragon Ball Z, One Piece, Naruto, all things that we love, all manga that were originally published in the legendary magazine Weekly Shonen Jump.
But not every series can run for 300 chapters and have a hit anime. This is David.
This is Jordan.
We're the hosts of Shonen Flop. Each episode we look at manga that ran in Jump that didn't quite make it.
We discuss what it did wrong, what it did right, how the series could have turned itself around, and ultimately, was it a flop or not?
We're on all your favorite podcast apps, and you can find us at shonenflop.com.
Keep on flopping, floppers.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening. It's a jacked up